All right, everyone, welcome to today's coaching call on how to use the GPS with your clients. I'm curious, before we dive in, what are you hoping to get out of our conversation today? Please go ahead and put that in the questions box because we're going to be customizing this for you. So go ahead and put that in the questions box. And for those of you who do not know, my name is Jeff Woods. I run the company behind The One Thing. And the reason we are doing this call today is because the last 4 years, we've been building this company, a training company around The One Thing, specifically outside of Keller Williams. And you fast forward to today, we go into multiple of the Fortune 50 and help them change the way they view time. We help them create a culture where people have a relationship with their goals. And what we mean by that is that people are really good at setting goals, getting clear on where they want to be, yet they're not great at having a relationship with them. They don't know the one thing they can do today that if they just did that one thing, it would put them on track for where they want to be someday from now. And as a result, people spend their days reacting to their inbox, attending meetings, being busy, looking up at the end of the day and going, I was busy, but did I get anything done? How many of you have ever had that experience? All of us. So the purpose of today is to help us have a relationship with our goals. And the tools that we have in The One Thing and inside of Keller Williams, being the GPS and the 411, are pivotal. And we believe there is an opportunity as coaches to take our understanding of these tools and adoption of these tools to the next level. So that's why we are doing this call today. So looking at the comments here. So clarity about how much detail goes on the GPS. Love it. Clarity on communication. Love the GPS. If I could pick up one thing, it would be great. Chunking it down, says Mike. Best way to help clients understand how to use this at a high level. Effective to coaching it, understanding it. Great. Okay, perfect. So let's do this. I'm going to pull up a separate PowerPoint deck and give you guys a little bit of perspective. Let me share my screen with all of you. Yeah, let's do this. All right, if you can see the screen, go ahead and put yes in the questions box so I understand. All right, fantastic. So one of the first things that we often hear is people say, okay, what's the difference between a GPS, a 411, a 66-day challenge, a time block? How does it all work together? This slide lays this out very clearly. It all starts with going way out someday from now and imagining what you want life to look like. Someday you get to define what that looks like. It might be 5, 10, 20, 50 years. This is for you to challenge your clients and say, what does someday really mean to you? And once they have a sense of what they want life to look like someday from now, which by the way, that's a big question. Do you think they just come up with that answer? They have to search. So once they get a sense of what that looks like, they then ask, where do I need to be 5 years from now to be on track for my someday? This is still a really big question and something that people struggle with. But once they have a sense of where they want to be 5 years from now, they can then establish their 1-year goals. That gets pretty easy. Now, the goals, especially around business that are big, complex, and require multiple people, write those 3 things down. It's a big goal. It's complex, meaning it's got lots of moving parts, and it requires multiple people. Do a GPS. You still can do a GPS even if they're a solo agent. They don't have to have multiple people, but it's really helpful when you got a team. The GPS brings clarity to the order of priority and accountability because it will show who owns each item on there. We're going to get to that. I think this is a big opportunity for a lot of us when we're coaching people. You're going to see how the accountability is not where it needs to be, and we're going to show you why. Once you have a good GPS, the purpose of that GPS is to help each person understand what goes on their 411. So the GPS is the higher level. This is our team. This is our department. This is our organization where we are going and the pieces and who owns each piece. The 411 is me saying, this is what I own for the year. And based on that, what I need to focus on this month to be on track for my year. And based on that, what I need to be focusing on this week to drive my month that drives my year. And once we have clarity on the 20% priorities for the week, that's what we time block. I would be willing, or I would ask the question, if we looked at all your clients' calendars and saw their time blocks, what would we really see? Would we see the 20% priorities that are going to generate 80% of the results? Or would we see all this 80% stuff and them squeezing in the 20% in the time that remains? Which would it be, option 1 or option 2? Put that answer in the questions box. And yes, this is being recorded. More option 2s. Okay, so as coaches, this is something you can focus on with them. Take a stand for their possibilities when their calendar is currently limiting them. Folks, this is very standard. People wake up at the beginning of the week, they open up their digital calendar, see all the stuff that's there, and then schedule everything else in at the time that remains. That is falling trap to the number one lie of productivity, the lie that everything matters equally. It's why Gary Keller, CEO of a technology company, uses a paper planner. Gary doesn't even use a digital calendar. He wants to see a month at a glance. He wants a big view of time, and he wants to be able to place the big rocks in the planner, and all the 80% stuff can flow around it. It's just like a river. When that water hits the boulder in the middle of the stream, it flows around it. So one thing you could bring up with your clients in your next call would be to actually look at their time blocks and say, what are the top things that matter to you this week? Let's do a screen share. Let's look at your calendar. Show me where that would be. That'll be a huge light bulb for people. Okay. And the 80%, all that other stuff, that ultimately ends up living. I'll show you for me. Here's my 411. That's the front of it. The back of the 411 is where all the 80% stuff gets parked. That's all the 80% stuff. That's where it lives. In our next call, we're going to dive more into the 411. The purpose of this slide is to give you a sense of how they all flow. So if people are asking what's the difference between a GPS and a 411, the GPS brings clarity and alignment and accountability to your organization. The 411 helps is each person showing how they are owning that piece of the overall business plan. Any questions on this before we push forward? Put your answers in the questions box if so. And Sajik, I just unmuted you. Say something so I can see if I hear you. He didn't know that I was unmuting him. All right, I'll come back to you. Best explanation ever. We've been living it for a little while. The GPS brings clarity, alignment, and accountability. And I'll dive into why that is. Clarity, alignment, and accountability. Yes, this recording will be made available for you. Sajik, if you're in the office, just run over to my office and we can go from there. But otherwise, let me try to unmute you one more time. I just unmuted you again. There you go. I got you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Do you have anything to add at this point?
No, you're doing great.
Oh, thanks. Okay, cool. So let's review the template. So it starts out by identifying our one thing for the year. Now let's acknowledge, folks, we all have more than one thing. And when I go into these Fortune 50 companies, I will deal with an IT organization, for example, where they don't have a simple metric like net $1 million. They don't have something that simple. It's very complex. And so when you work with your clients, the thing you want to be looking for in the goal is it directional? Is it a North Star? Is it something that is so simple that every single person in the organization could easily rattle it off when they see you in the hallway? And let me give you an example of this. On one side, it could be net $1 million or increase revenue by 10%. It could be something specific and measurable and simple that every single person could see and ask the question on a daily basis: how is what I'm doing right now supporting the organization to increase profit or drive revenue? And sometimes, like these IT orgs that I end up working with, they may have something that's might be like develop software that mitigates risks and sets the organization up for double-digit growth. It's not necessarily specific and measurable, but it is a North Star. And every employee can be asking the question, how is what I'm doing right now contributing to developing software that mitigates risk and sets the organization up for double-digit growth? So let's do a quick pulse. I'm actually curious, what percent of your clients have a GPS for this year? Put that answer in the questions box. Yep. I've got anywhere from 0 to 100%. So this is an opportunity. And for those of you where if it's not the majority, if not 100%, my goal is that you actually see why this matters, even if they're a single agent. Because especially as a single agent, they are doing everything in the business, which means they are most likely to fall trapped to the number one lie of productivity, that everything matters equally. This will help them understand what their goal is for the year. And based on that, what are the top levers that they have to pull, the top priorities, so that they can then look at their 411 and time block them in order of priority. Okay, so we've got an opportunity here. So that's where we start with the goal. We then list the priorities. These are the major initiatives. This is not everything. These are the 20% initiatives. They're going to deliver 80% of the impact. We make the list, and the key here for you as a coach is to ensure they're in order of priority. So pay attention to the questions that I'm about to ask, because this is the language of the one thing. If you could only accomplish one thing this year, is priority one really the number one thing that's going to make the biggest impact toward that goal? Should you earn the right to focus on anything else? Is number two really going to be the next thing that's going to bring the biggest impact toward your goal? Should you earn the right to focus on anything else? Is it number three? Should you earn the right to focus on anything else? Is it number four? Now, as a coach, we need to look really carefully here at how many priorities they are listing. If they have more than 4 priorities, sirens should be going off inside your head, because we can only divide our focus so much and actually be effective. Even inside of Fortune 50 companies, I can sit down with a senior vice president who might have 25 major initiatives, and I have yet to see one that wasn't able to compress it to 4. They just got to line their dominoes up, and they got to stop treating distractions as priorities. It's not to say that these are the only things that are happening inside the org, but the purpose of this tool is to bring clarity, alignment, and accountability. And the clarity is being clear on what matters most. So I'm looking at your comments. Our leadership coaches are on the call too. Can we focus on leadership roles and leadership team roles? Yeah, Micah, give me specific questions to go there. Could you go over the questions again? Sure. And guess what? I am going to share an awesome tool with all of you. I created this tool for these larger organizations so they could have a single sheet of paper or a double-sided sheet of paper that would actually help them understand what a GPS is, why they use it, and how to complete it, including questions to ask. So when we talk about establishing your one big goal, great question to open up with is, fast forward to the end of the year, how will you know if you're successful? This will stop your clients dead in their tracks. And they'll either go, I don't know, or they'll say, great question, which is, we know from Tony DeCello, that's when you know you asked the right question. We want to push for specificity. If it's not specific, we ask again, how will you know if you're successful? If it's not measurable, ask what specifically has to happen to achieve that? And then as a coach, be asking the question, can we simplify it any further? Now, when we were talking about the priorities, this is what I was reviewing right here. If you could only accomplish one, what's the one that would make achieving your goal easier or unnecessary? Should you earn the right to accomplish a second? What would it be? Should you earn the right to accomplish a third? What would it be? You're just ensuring that their priorities are in order of priority. And if they are not, they get to re-rank them. This will be one of the biggest values that you will deliver to your clients. I will tell you, for the first 4 months of, if you hold a 411 with them every single week, if you could only accomplish one thing this week, is it really number one? You will be amazed for month after month after month. They're going to go, ah, it's actually number 3. And you're going to go, awesome. Cross that out and make that your new number 1. Should you earn the right to focus on a second? Is it your current number 2? Actually, no, it's number 4. Okay, we'll make that your new number 2. It will take months for them to finally to sink in and realize, oh snap, I need to start thinking in order of priority. Why do you think it takes so long for this to happen? Yes, I'll be able to share this document, Susan. Why do you think this happens? I shared this example earlier this week in KWRI. Think of your client's journey as a rocket ship. If a rocket has to go to the moon and back, what % of the fuel source do you think gets used up in the first 2 minutes of flight? Put your answer in the questions box. Kathy nailed it. 70%. 70% of the fuel source is used up in the first 2 minutes of flight. And that's because it takes that much to overcome gravity. Your clients, folks, will feel the gravity of decades of habits, decades of ways of thinking that were unconsciously formed. Nobody ever woke up and set an intention to go and treat everything like it matters equally. Nobody set an intention to follow a calendar that ensures that they honor every single distraction and say no to the things that matter most in their life. Yet that's actually the way they behave. And there's no judgment in this because they were never taught, but that's where you come in. You've got to take a stand for their greatness. You've got to take a stand for what's possible with them. And that's where these tools come in. And the foundation of all of it, coaching questions. Great coaching questions. And as you're going to see on this sheet, you don't need a lot of them. It's pretty simple. It's the focusing question. What's the one thing you can do for that? And when it's vague, how will you know when you're successful? That's going to get you 80% of the way there. Those 2 questions. What's the one thing you can do for that? How will you know when you're successful? Not to say those are the only questions. Bring your creativity and your expertise to the table, but this scales. Okay. So great question, Sue, about what does it mean to earn the right? This is straight from Gary Keller. This is how he talks. So when he looks at everything that's on his plate, he doesn't look at it as things on his plate. He views them as dominoes. And every single day, he's lining them up. And he understands that if we were actually trying to knock dominoes down, it would be ridiculous to go to the 4th domino and flick that one because numbers 1, 2, and 3 would still be standing. He, in his bones, understands that until his number 1 priority is done, everything else is a distraction. Now, let's talk about what this really looks like. In a vacuum, we would act that way. We would only focus on our number 1 priority and we would not do anything else until that was done. And is that realistic? Is that real life? The answer is no. So that's where when we talk about earning the right, it's do we at least have clarity on what the lead domino is? And are we doing our share, everything we can do to knock that domino down? Whether it falls or not that day, we don't know because we have interdependencies. No one succeeds alone. But are you at least moving the ball the best of your capacity right now before you earn the right to focus on anything else? And it's that you have to do it to earn the right to do anything else. That's what we mean by that. Okay, so going back to the GPS template. So fly up to a high level. The purpose of a goal is to be appropriate in the moment. That's straight from Gary, to give us a sense of, based on where we want to be, how do we know if we're appropriately right now? So your goal, we want it to be specific, measurable, and simple, if possible. If it cannot be specific and measurable, it best be directional so that people can view it as a North Star and understand, am I behaving appropriately right now? Once we've established the goal, we earn the right to focus on the priorities. You are going to find your clients wanting to talk to you about the priorities before they've earned the right to, because they can't tell you where they're going. And until you know what success looks like, you actually do not know a priority from a distraction. So we make the list of all the priorities we could do, and then we rank them. What are the ones we should do? and make sure they're in order of priority. And once they are written, that's when we want to make them accountable. And I can share a good example of what this might look like for you. Let's go. Where is my, here we go. So this is something that we have in the One Thing Planner. We've got an example of this. So this is an example 411. Here's an example GPS. And yes, we will send this all out to you as well. So from the goal standpoint, if you could only accomplish one thing, what is it? On this, we want it to be as specific and as measurable as possible. And the big key is who owns it inside the organization. Should you earn the right to do anything else? Is this really the second thing? Make it as specific and as measurable as possible and assign an owner. Assign the owner. This is where the accountability comes in. Oftentimes, the larger an organization gets, the less clear people are on what they actually own. And the purpose of this is if your leaders that you coach can cast the vision of where they're going and why they're going there, can say the specific things that they're going to do to get there, and then say, you know what, Henry, you own number 2. Cheryl, you own number 1. Diane, you own number 3. Then for Cheryl, she can look up, and when she does her 411, she understands she's pulling pieces from the GPS that had her name next to them, and that is flowing to the 411. That's how it works. What questions do you have up to this point? And Sajik, I'm going to unmute you if there's anything that's coming to your mind.
Well, Jeff, I just sent you a message here saying that if you could shoot me these documents afterwards, I have all the coaches blowing up my text saying, can you please send me these documents? So I just want to make sure they know that we're going to get it out to everyone.
We will get them. Philip asked a great question. If the goal is really big, should you also assign priorities and strategies? So Philip, I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. If the goal is really big, you're still going to identify the priorities, and strategies do still need to be identified. The question is who identifies them, and we're going to get to that in a second. Aaron said these examples are amazing. Can you share all these? You look at you. At least we're all on the same page. Okay. So if a single agent, can you go from GPS to planner skipping the 411? Michael, you could, but here would be my question. The GPS is showing where we need to go over the course of the year. How can you specifically tell me what you must accomplish this week to absolutely know that you're on track? And that's where we lose people. So let's use an example like conducting surveys. So we know that if the goal is to increase division profit by 10%, we've got to increase customer retention. And one of the ways we can do that is conduct surveys of past customers over the past 12 months to identify why they left. So when Cheryl understands that that's something that she has to do over the course of a year, on her 411, she understands she needs to have that done by March 30. So then she can ask in the month of January, what do I actually need to do? Well, I have to write the first draft of the survey for those past customers this month. So based on that, what must I absolutely do this week? Well, she's flowing that straight to this week. So in the absence of a 411, we often see that most people will not be so clear to say, you know what? I need a 1 hour time block this week so I can write a first draft. And if I do, I understand that I am on track for owning my piece of driving customer retention, which will increase division profit. That's what we mean by we're good at setting goals, but we struggle to have a relationship with them. We know where we want to be, but we don't know the one thing we can do this week to be on track. That's what it looks like. And I would also say that the purpose of the 411 is it's a backbone of accountability conversations. For all your clients that have people, we often see that there's not a consistent model for having weekly one-on-ones that ensure we teach our people how to think so they get what they need when they need it. And that's what the 411 is. And in the next call that we do, you're going to see how formulaic we've made the 411. It's awesome. And I know that you're going to love it. Great question. When you write in the person who's accountable, how do you tie into that person's 411? Rich, subtle language there. You don't do anything. That's for them to figure out. Rich, if you were inside our organization, I said, Rich, you own our second priority and there's specific strategies in there that you have responsibility to. I'd be saying, okay, Rich, next week when we sit down on Monday to review your 411 for the year, I want you to show me your plan over the course of the year to get this done. And that's where you would have to say, great, I know that these are the things I have to accomplish this year because I pulled it from the GPS, but what's the one thing I can do this month to be on track for the year? And based on that, what's the one thing I can do this week to be on track for the month that puts me on track for the year? Jay Papasan shared this yesterday inside corporate. When you do a 411 and you follow the model that we have, which you as a leader are only asking questions, you're making your people do the thinking for themselves. The mistake that a lot of leaders make is we want to move so fast that we give our people the answers, but that's not how you actually succeed through others. And when you show up in these 411s just asking questions, testing the ability of your people to think, you figure out who can think and who can't think for themselves. And when you find the people that cannot think for themselves, you then understand you either got to coach them up or help them find their next opportunity because they shouldn't be inside your world. Okay. I've heard in the past that each priority needs to be able to hit the goal. So Michelle, there's two ways to look at this. I've heard what she's referring to, and I've heard Gary say this, or it was John Davis at the time saying that this priority should be so powerful that it alone could accomplish the goal. And this priority should be so powerful alone that it could accomplish the goal. You certainly could do that. I will say it's not always reasonable. In an agent world, it might be possible. It might be different forms of lead generation that could get it there. It's an interesting challenge for your clients, but it's not absolutely required. Yep. Can we get examples for people, agents in the organization at their levels? So Linda, I don't have examples like that set up transparently. In my first 6 months, I was told to build a company outside of KW. So all of our examples are non-agent specific, but I can absolutely tie it to agents. So I don't have a pretty PDF like that for agents. I feel like I'm understanding this for the very first time, understanding it in a whole new way. That's awesome. Thank you very much for the feedback. Okay, let's talk about how this actually works when we facilitate GPS workshops. We task the leader with coming in with their goal. That's the leader's job, to cast the vision of where are we going. They can solicit the feedback of the team, but ultimately, this is not a democracy. This is the leader casting a vision. And the leader can also come in with what they believe the priorities are. And they can also open it up to the team. So I'm already starting to look at our GPS for next year. And I understand where we want to be from a goal standpoint. I have a sense of what I think the priorities are. I'm going to go to the people that report to me and ask them for their thoughts. Two reasons for that. One, it's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. And we're all in our own box called our life. And second, I want them to feel a sense of ownership in it. And I also want to test their thinking. I want to see how big and how strategic they can think so I know who's actually talent to replace me. So there's a lot of strategy there. But when we sit down to do our GPS, I'm going to lay it out from a high level. I'm going to put that person's name to it. It's that person's job to write the priority in a way that's specific, measurable, simple. It's Cheryl's job to identify the strategies that will achieve that priority. I think a lot of us, I know I can speak to my experience, my natural behavior was to fill it all out and share it with the team. But when you act that way, the team doesn't feel a true sense of buy-in. They don't feel a sense of ownership. And there's that ownership and accountability matters. When I was interviewing for this job, I asked Jay asked, my first thing I had to do in my 90 days was I had to create a GPS that Gary and Jay would sign off on. And if they didn't sign off on it, I was fired. Knowing the stakes were high, I asked Jay, awesome, what vision do you have for the company? And he said, and this was so powerful for me, he said, we have a sense of where we think this should go, and we're not going to tell you. Because if we give you the answer and we're wrong, who's accountable? They are. If they told me to run in this direction when I should have been going over here, they're accountable. They don't get to fire me. But if I say we need to go over here and we should have gone here, I'm actually accountable for those results. So whatever size the org, if they just, I would ask the question, if there are other people that you are wanting to own that, then they need to own it. And your job is to play coach and make sure that they're within the bumper rails so that it's going in the right direction. Lee asked a question. When you have a large organization, would you only bring in leadership to discuss the GPS so that all the people who have stakes in the priorities are there to be assigned? As many people as you can loop in is greatly. More people, the better. I mean, I've had it from, and again, this is agent world, but I've had it from C-suite where they looped in their VP level and directors and managers all that far down because they wanted to have a sense of what that was going to look like. And even a manager, they didn't really have a stake in what a VP and a C-suite person were saying, but because they were a part of the conversation, they suddenly had a new perspective on where the company was going and why it was there. And they were asked for their input because they're also closer to the individual contributors who are closest to the customers. So the more people you can loop in, I honestly think the better. Sajik, I'm going to unmute you. What have we not covered yet that we need to cover?
I think what you just said with looping in all the key people, that's really important. I've encouraged a lot of the teams that I'm coaching to actually do this as a team effort during their team advances, especially when it comes to labeling the priorities and the strategy so there's ownership within the team.
Yeah, that's good. And folks, this document, wrong one. It's somewhere here. Here it is. This document will get you 80% of the way there to actually hosting a retreat to do a GPS. And remember, you don't earn the right to focus on all this stuff until the previous one is done. I will tell you that just establishing the goal and the wording around it could take 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how complex the org is. Now, in an agent business, it might be pretty clear. Profit number.
Hey, Jeff, can you unmute Monica too?
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
And Jeff, one more question, because we have the leadership coaches on here. In your opinion, how important it would be to have the ALC involved in the Market Center GPS?
I would flip it and ask what becomes possible if the ALC felt a sense of ownership in the plan.
Yeah.
So
Monica, you're
Jeff,
unmuted.
yeah, good. Thank you. So Jeff, for clarity, and let's say you were a coaching client and a great MAPS coaching client. As a coach, there are basically 4 calls a month. What would you expect as a client about the GPS as far as accountability? Because sometimes, to be totally transparent, we'll do these GPSs and then they'll go by the wayside for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we're focused on the business plan and how many listings, how many buy. We're doing the 4 conversations. We're not back on the GPS.
I can tell you what I know because as we've built up our community and we've been passing the majority, 80% of our database is non-real estate. So the majority of the clients that we are passing end up going to MAPS business coaching. And I can tell you the people who want to be coached to the tools of the one thing, here's what they want. They want a coach to know, not to help them complete the GPS, but to interrogate their GPS, to ensure that first and foremost, that the goal is as specific, as measurable, as simple as possible.
So would that be a once a month thing that could possibly?
I would say, I'd say in Q4, it's probably a lot of calls. interrogating it. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
once the year is starting, the GPS is pretty well set. I'd be asking the question. I personally review my GPS on a monthly basis. I don't need my coach to hold me accountable to that, but I would definitely say on a quarterly basis, at a bare minimum, we are looking at that GPS and saying, how are we doing? And if you're seeing that your client is off track, you need to tighten the time frame. That's where you need to be looking at the GPS on a monthly basis and ensuring that what is showing up in their monthly section on the 411 is actually going to get them on track for the pieces they own for the year.
So right now, for clarity, so everybody hears this, right now, it's probably going to be on a weekly basis until it's completely drilled down and absolutely accurate and makes 100% sense and everybody on the team. And then moving forward, going into 2020, then once a month, review it. And it can be brief because the numbers and everything will show up if it's not working.
That's correct. And
Great.
let me show you what this looks like. Again, this all assumes that the GPS for the year has been set. But once that's done for the month, this should be very reflective of what they have to do to be on track for the pieces of the GPS they own for the year. That's
And
for you
Jeff,
to
this is the
really
piece that you
interrogate.
would encourage the coaches to review weekly with the client.
The 411?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think it's one of the biggest opportunities that we have is bring real focus and accountability to a 411, because when you know the questions to ask and your clients are clear, they have a tight 411, they absolutely know no ifs, no ands, no buts. These are the handful of things I must accomplish this week to be on track. And until that's done, everything else is a distraction. What other questions do you have? And somebody asked, won't the 411 keep you on track? The 411 will keep you on track if you're holding effective 411s. The mistakes we see with 411s, we're going to dive into this into the next call. People think this is an opportunity to ask, how was your weekend? And people treat their 411 like a to-do list. They just put everything on there because they think everything matters equally. It doesn't. And that's where, as coaches, we have to take a bigger stand here. We have to be a little bit tougher, not a little bit, a lot tougher on what is a priority from what is a distraction. Tim's talking about, can you hit on how important the personal side as well? So this is something I hear Jay talk about a lot. Anytime somebody leaves an opportunity, it's because they wake up one day and realize they can't have everything they want by being inside the world of that org. So they leave. And our research shows that almost always it's something that's missing in their personal life that they hoped would get fulfilled by being in that organization. And so this is going to be a lot of the 411 conversation, but especially if you're coaching the leader, what will increasing division profit by 10% do for you? What will that do for your people? Why is that important? And really diving deep to how it connects to the personal side, because otherwise they don't have the purpose to drive the priority, which drives their productivity. Michelle, since this flows into the 411, is the 411 weekly? Absolutely. It's a 30-minute weekly conversation. And I could easily lay out that that's probably a year's worth of coaching calls to get your clients to truly think and act in order of priority to the point that you really wouldn't have to do it with them anymore. Could be a solid year of every single week interrogating their 411.
Jeff, you hit this a little bit ago where a lot of clients have a tendency to make this to their the weekly activities, their to-do list. And I see that happen all the time. And getting them to understand that this isn't a to-do list and you're really making this your success list, which is your 20%, that's a conversation that happens for at least 4 to 6 weeks after, because it's creating that habit.
Correct. It's a new way of thinking. We're really good at looking at all the stuff that's on our plate. And for some reason, we developed a habit of saying, if I can just clear the decks of the 80%, I will then have my time to focus on the 20. And that's not how it works. Parkinson's law says work will expand to the time that you allow it. And we got enough 80% to fill 100% of our time. So we really have to have clarity on what those things are that matter most. Here, let me give you a real example. My 411. Let's scroll up if it would actually behave. So I'm clear on where we need to be over the course of a year. And based on that, I'm clear on the handful of things I must absolutely do this month. But going in today is Friday. And yesterday I was reviewing my 411 and realizing, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff on here that's not crossed out. 2 and 3 are not crossed out, which means I had to change my activities. I did not earn the right to watch Ballers last night. I had to stay up late and I had to move the ball on these things because I don't earn the right to go into the weekend with peace of mind, knowing that I did not get the 20% things done that are going to generate 80% of the results in my business. But that level of clarity, that level of thinking and behavior is a shift, and it takes time. Yeah, you like the Google Sheet? It's just my coaching scorecard.
So Jeff, can you scroll up a little? Because I think it's important for the coaches to see how you made this a measurable 411.
Yeah.
In that you have exactly, you want 36 date nights, and on the right-hand side, you say that you have 27 completed. So at any given time, the scorecard. And the importance of making sure that all of our 411 annual goals are smart, it's so that you can measure them and know if you're winning or not.
That's right. That's right. So, and folks, this is 4 years of doing a 411 every single week. It gets to this point. It's not like your clients start here, but this is one of the biggest opportunities we have. We're good at identifying the result. We're terrible at identifying the activity that drives the result. So when I look at our GPS for our organization, there's a lot of things that we have to do, from driving our corporate training business to driving our couples goal setting retreat that's right around the corner to driving our membership. There's lots of things from a growth standpoint that have to happen. And I ask the question, great, we've got 7 initiatives that need to make it rain. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, all of that becomes easier or unnecessary? Lead generation. Okay, well, I can do number of calls or I can do amount of time. And for me, tracking time was better. And so I actually have a full-blown tab in here, because my coach made me do it, where I track how many calls I've made every single month, how much time I've invested, what the results were of those things. And that all rolls up to my 411 so that I can say, as of today, I've done 165.93 hours of lead generation. And Charlotte can quickly know if I'm on track or if I'm behind. What other questions do you have? So let's fly up to a high level. We're going back to the GPS. The purpose of the GPS is to bring clarity, alignment, and accountability. Clarity on where we are going. Clarity on the 20% priorities that are going to generate 80% of our results. Alignment, showing the order of priority, especially as the org starts to get bigger. No one succeeds alone. And your one thing might be my third thing, but having a GPS that when there's conflict on the priority, we can point to it and go, are we acting in order of priority or not? And accountability by putting names next to each thing so that people are hyper clear on the piece of it they own, so they can then transfer that to the annual section of their 411. So every month they can be asking, what do I have to be doing this month to be on track? And what do I absolutely have to have time blocked this week to know that I'm holding up my end of the bargain? What questions do you have? Kathy asks, how can we help you grow? Thank you. Share the podcast. If your clients aren't listening to the One Thing podcast, they're missing out. Every week we're interviewing somebody that's living this, which means that they're failing because we're all on a path of mastery. And I think that'd be massively helpful. And if you think that your clients would benefit from going through this type of experience to really cast that vision, Jay and I are hosting a couples goal setting retreat November 9th and 10th here in Austin, which if you go to theonething.com/event, you can learn more about it there. That's the number one in the URL. Thank you. I'm curious, out of everything that we've talked about over the last 45 minutes, what is the single biggest aha that you've had? Put that in the questions box. Oh, yeah. And if you have corporate clients outside of the Keller Williams world, that's my one thing. So I would love an introduction. Jeff.woods@kw.com. GEOFF.woods@kw.com. Joe said it must be directional. That's solid. Thank you. Pat, have the clients share the podcast with their sphere. Oh, thank you. I love seeing your spreadsheet and trackable numbers. That was helpful. Awesome. Thank you. Involve the ALC. The 411 is not a to-do list. Oh, Garrett, wait till the next call. This is going to blow your mind, my friend. Adding a scorecard to the 411. Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm not utilizing this powerful tool. Thank you for the accountability. Folks, we're all on a path of mastery. And I think what's amazing about the one thing and all these tools is it's the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. We don't need a lot of complexity. I mean, these are really simple Word and Excel documents or Google Docs and Google Sheets driving a vision and accountability. It's incredible. Earn the right to go forward, says Judy. Optics on the scorecard versus 411 real time, huge. Yep, the questions to ask, which we'll send that guide out so that you can start asking those questions. Oh, do you want Christmas come early? You guys ready for this? This is going to blow your mind. theonething.com/coaching questions. Tony DeCello challenged me a few years ago to reread The One Thing and for every chapter, write down 10 deadly questions. Questions that are so big that they would stop somebody dead in their tracks. And I put them into a Google Doc and organized it by chapter. So if you want to see the type of questions that you can start asking your clients around this, theonething.com/coaching questions. The thing I'll ask is that if you do this, if you view this, I ask that you contribute to it. If you have questions that you'd like to add, email it to mastery@theonething because we're continuing to curate this and top grade this over time. Told you. Happy holidays. Someday goals, then 5-year goals. Earn the right to tackle priority number 2, the purpose of a GPS, clarity, alignment, and accountability. Yep. Not spending time on this. Yeah, it's a challenge. How can we coach to this if we aren't doing it ourselves? Must make the change. Thank you, Jeremy. One of the first things that Jay said to me when I moved my family from Southern California to Austin to start this company was the fastest way to get out of business with him and Gary was to not live it. Literally, I will lose my job if I don't live this. It's a high level of accountability, but as coaches, you got to be living this. We've launched a certification program for companies that want to bring the one thing into their culture and also for ambassadors who want to take it to the outside world. Contractually, we're not just thought leaders, we're practice leaders, which means we have a GPS, we update a weekly 411, we time block our priorities in a paper planner and a digital calendar. We've completed or are in the middle of a 66-day challenge. We're an active member of our Living Your One Thing community. It's in the contract. They have to be doing it contractually to get certified, because there's no way you earn the right to stand in front of a group of people and teach them how to live the one thing if you're not living the one thing. And so this is just an opportunity for all of us to hold up a mirror and ask, we're coaching our people to these models, but are we actually living it? I think people like the coaching questions. Can you share the blank Excel version of the 411 so we can customize? Yeah, so let me show you where to go. theonething.com. And we have a page called free stuff. And under the free stuff page, there's you've got the 411 in Word version and the 411 in Excel. And another thing, these are great questions to share with your clients. These are questions that Jane with over a decade to help them start to set their goals together as a couple. They're really solid. And if your clients, I would also say for leverage purposes, because your clients are paying you about $8 a minute, we've got some free courses on the training page under the basics on the 411. So that way you don't have to take the time to teach it to them. Where's the training? Come on. You don't have to take the time to teach it to them. They can go through that video and get it done really, really quickly. Moving the client forward. Boom. Sajik, what were you saying about the one thing planner? Hold on, let me unmute you.
Yeah. So how can our coaches get the one thing planner, right? Because if we're saying that we need to start implementing and using it, well, we should be using the planner too.
Yeah. So, and this is the start using the 411. It's a free course that your clients can go through. If you guys go to the shop page, we are pre-ordering the planner for 2020. And we literally designed this based on how Gary uses a paper planner. So we sat down with a lot of people. Linda McKissick actually had a big stake in this in terms of, because Gary taught her how to use a planner, ensuring that every day there's a space for people to declare their one thing, that they have a relationship with their goals. And on a monthly basis, there's reflect and plan coaching questions that help them find that clarity so they can start showing up to your calls with more clarity. So then you get to coach them to the next level.
Okay, so thanks, Sajag. Let's hold off on that because Jeff and I are going to have a conversation and we're going to maybe have a surprise for the coaches. It's no longer a surprise.
Oh, my bad, Monica.
We are so bad. We'll talk later.
Clarity, alignment, accountability.
I know. That was not on anything we wrote down, so it's okay for Sajak. He'll still get a little talk.
Go.
No. But anyway, so everybody hold off. You'll be surprised.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say, folks. For your clients and for you, the path to getting everything you want is to get one thing at a time. The challenge is we look at these models and we find ourselves saying like, oh, I wish I was here. We look at where we are rather than where we are, and we feel this gap and this deficit. And the thing that I would reinforce for you to reinforce with your clients is think big, go small, and trust that the dominoes will fall. If they're going to want to just run through walls, but taking the time to get clear on their on their business plan, taking the time to reflect and plan on a weekly basis so they have a tight 411, that domino truly makes everything else easier or unnecessary. Thank you for the time, folks.
Jeff, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time to pour into our coaches.
Awesome job, simple to understand. And what's great is that I know I need to go back and listen to it a couple of times, and we've got it recorded for everybody to go back. So great explanation. The other thing too that I have to share with you, there's so much on YouTube on 411 and GPSs that are so wrong. Stop looking at that stuff, you guys. We're going to give you the right stuff here. There's just too much. Everybody's got their own take on it, and there's like 90,000 agents out there that put something up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got the answers. Okay, good. Thanks, Jeff. This was awesome.
Thanks all.
Right.
Bye.